In Western Australia, beachgoers film a sperm whale swimming among people.
Authorities sadly say that the whale died after getting stuck on a sandbar. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gian Alyanes.
I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. China blames the Philippines for escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea. Pag-asa tells the nation to brace for a dry spell by 2024. Chinese leader Xi Jinping flies to Vietnam to counter the United States' diplomatic moves. Thousands of mysteriously dead fish end up on the shores of a Japan beach. And let's find which shows are slated for the Golden Globe Awards.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi.
The Philippine government has called China for the continuous proliferation of false information regarding incidents in the West Philippine Sea. This is after the Chinese embassy in the Philippines released a video where the Philippines resupply boat was shown apparently tilting close to the China Coast Guard ship.
China's claim that the small and wooden Onay Samay 1 intentionally rammed a CCG vessel is the height of disinformation and fake news. It's akin to claiming that a tricycle intentionally rammed a Victory Liner bus on its way to Baguio.
China's information of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Deputy Director Mao Ning insisted that the Philippines was the one who provoked this situation. In a statement, she noted, and I quote, "I would like to stress that the responsibility for the recent emergencies in waters of Renai Jiao lies with the Philippines. The root cause is that the Philippines has broken its promise and refused to tow away the illegally grounded warship at the reef and tried to reinforce it in an attempt to permanently occupy Renai Jiao." She also blamed the Philippines for not following the promise to remove the BRP Sierra Madre, which was stranded in the Ayungin Shoal. National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya refuted that the Philippine government has not promised anything. Malaya also underscored that the United States was not aware of resupply missions in the West Philippine Sea.
The missions to Bajo de Masinloc and Ayungin Shoal are completely Philippine missions utilizing Philippine public vessels and Philippine troops.
Pag-asa said that 77% of the country will experience a dry spell or drought due to the El Nino phenomenon by May next year. Pag-asa Climate Impact Monitoring and Prediction Section Chief Ana Soles said that Filipinos can expect a big reduction in rainfall in the first 2 quarters of 2024. In a radio interview, Soles disclosed that El Nino will be experienced and may be recorded as the warmest temperature in that year. Climate experts urge the health sector to prepare for hot temperatures during drought. Meanwhile, Department of Science and Technology or DOST Secretary Renato Solidom Jr. said that 65 provinces in the country are bound to experience a long drought by next year. Solidom noted that severe drought conditions will be experienced from February to May 2024. The DOST chief has also urged the government to improve preparations in the upcoming year.
The Bureau of Immigration is anticipating a substantial influx of travelers, tourists, and overseas Filipino workers to the country this month, with estimates reaching up to 1.5 million. Immigration Commissioner Norman Tancinco based his projection on the ongoing trend, noting that the monthly arrivals have consistently hovered around 1 million since the second quarter of 2023. In the previous month alone, over 1.6 million passengers arrived, nearly half of whom were foreigners. Historical data indicates that pre-COVID-19, approximately 1.7 million individuals used to arrive at the international airports of the Philippines every December. In the preceding month of November, almost 1.1 million tourists traveled, inching closer to the pre-pandemic levels of around 1.3 million.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has taken action by signing 2 administrative orders, or AOs, introducing incentive and gratuity pay for government personnel. AO number 12 authorizes the provision of a one-time service recognition incentive of 20,000 pesos for government employees within the executive branch. Eligible recipients include civilian personnel in national government agencies, those in state universities and colleges, and personnel in government-owned or controlled corporations, regardless of their employment status. Military personnel of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, as well as uniformed personnel of the Philippine National Police and Bureau of Fire Protection, among others, are also entitled to this incentive. Simultaneously, AO number 13 has been approved by the President, paving the way for a one-time gratuity pay not exceeding 5,000 pesos for contract of service and job order government employees. Qualifying individuals must have provided at least 4 months of satisfactory service, meeting the stipulations outlined in their respective contracts by the 15th of December.
The House of Representatives has assured that there will be an adequate supply and an affordable price of rice in the country. House Speaker Martin Romualdez confirmed this in his keynote message at the Philippine Economic Briefing held in Iloilo City. Romualdez made the statement following reports that the 45 peso per kilo retail price set by the President is no longer followed, and the lowest price of rice in the markets is at 50 pesos and above per kilo. The House Speaker said that as an agricultural nation, the Congress prioritizes providing support to farmers and fishermen, promoting programs for food security and sustainable agricultural practices. This includes infrastructure development, education and workforce development, healthcare and social services, and instilling a good business and investment climate.
Budget and Management Secretary Amena Pangandaman emphasizes the pivotal role of the approved 2024 national budget as a key instrument for implementing President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s 8-point socio-economic agenda. Expressing confidence in the President's approval, Secretary Pangandaman notes that the ratified national budget is now slated for registration, printing, and swift transmission to the Office of the President. President Marcos is anticipated to sign the national budget before his scheduled trip to Japan on the 15th of December. The Budget Secretary underscores the importance of the budget in realizing the administration's 8-point socio-economic agenda. The agenda will prioritize critical areas in the country's industries, such as food security, enhancements to public transport, healthcare, and education, among others.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared that the 31st of December deadline for the nationwide consolidation of public jeepneys will not be extended. This announcement comes amid the Piston Group's plan to stage a strike on the 14th and the 15th of December in protest of the Public Utility Vehicle or PUV modernization program. In response to the impending strike, various transport groups supporting jeepney modernization engaged in discussions with government officials this Tuesday. President Marcos emphasized that the decision to uphold the deadline for the consolidation of public utility vehicles has been declared final. He clarified that the remaining transport groups opting for a strike represent the minority, pointing out that 70% of all operators have already committed to the modernization program.
The House of Representatives is set to push the bagong konstitusyon ng bagong Pilipinas by 2024. This is what House Senior Deputy Speaker Aurelio Gonzales II revealed in an ambush interview. Gonzales disclosed that in the third regular session, the House will work on the amendment to the Constitution. House Speaker Martin Romualdez disclosed that in 2024, the House decided to advance the amendment to the 1987 Constitution or charter change. Romualdez noted that it is focused on economic provisions, ensuring that there will be continuity in the administration. Coming up, Japan is set for a top cabinet shakeup. President Volodymyr Zelensky calls for more funding in the Russia-Ukraine war. And Antonio Guterres calls for a fossil fuel phase-out. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
orientation po sila.
Durugin mo silang mabuti. Wala kang palalampasin.
Simula na ng training ni Jiwan at Yondo sa trabaho. Pero umpisa pa lang,
Bagong empleyado siya. Hindi pwede yung special
Ay,
treatment.
kakaiba ka! Teka, ano ka ba rito?
mamumuliti ka na agad ang sasalubong kay Jiwan.
Mahirap talaga kapag hindi kilalang pinanggalingan mong school.
Madudurog nga ba ang pride at prinsipyo ni Jiwan?
Dahil sa pagpapabibo mo, sumasama ang imahe ng anak ni Mr. President.
House of Bluebird. Gabi-gabi, 8:30 p.m. sa Net 25.
Let's get together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
Ang mikroponong ito'y naglalahad ng saloobin, oras na para ipasa sa bagong makata natin. Galing ay ipamalas, pangarap ilabas, itodo ang lakas, Rapstar Pilipinas.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. India's Supreme Court has upheld the government's decision to revoke special status for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The two states had been at the heart of more than 75 years of animosity with Pakistan since the two nations gained independence from Britain in 1947. But 2 years later, the Indian Constitution's Article 370 came into effect. This became the basis for Jammu and Kashmir's accession to the Indian Union. Article 370 also gave the region autonomy in making its own laws in all matters except finance, defense, foreign affairs, and communications. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government revoked Article 370 in 2019. In upholding the government's decision, the Supreme Court said special status was a temporary constitutional provision that could be revoked.
The declaration issued by the President in exercise of the power under Clause 3 of Article 370 is a culmination of the process of integration. Thus, we do not find that the President's exercise of power under Clause 3 of Article 370 was mala fide. Having concluded that the power under Article 370 Clause 3 subsisted, even after the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly, we have held that the exercise of power by the President to issue CO 273 is a valid exercise of constitutional power.
Prime Minister Modi called the Supreme Court's verdict a beacon of hope and a promise of a brighter future. The Supreme Court, through Chief Justice Chandrachud, also ordered the region to hold local elections by September 30, 2024.
Direct elections to the legislative assemblies, which is one of the paramount features of representative democracy in India, cannot be put on hold until statehood is restored. We direct that steps shall be taken by the Election Commission of India to conduct elections to the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, constituted under Section 14 of the Reorganization Act by 30 September 2024. Restoration of statehood shall take place at the earliest and as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, Pakistan's government has rejected the decision of India's Supreme Court, asserting it does not acknowledge the supremacy of the Indian Constitution over Jammu and Kashmir.
Pakistan categorically rejects the judgment announced by the Supreme Court of India on the status of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir is an internationally recognized dispute which remains on the agenda of the United Nations Security Council for over 7 decades.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is set to fire several top ministers amid reports and investigations of alleged fraud. He says he will restore trust in his government. Local reports say Kishida's list includes Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno, who is now facing a no-confidence motion filed by the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan. Prosecutors are investigating allegations that Matsuno and other key ministers belonging to a faction formerly headed by late Premier Shinzo Abe failed to report tens of thousands of dollars raised through fundraising parties. Matsuno has refrained from making public comments, saying his faction is going through facts. He says he intends to review the details of his own fund to take appropriate steps in addressing the issue.
先ほどお答えをさせていただいた通りでございますが、政府の立場としてはお答えを差し控えるべきであると認識していますが、私の所属する清和政策研究会においては、事実関係を精査するとコメントしているものと承知しており、今後事実確認の上、適切に対応するものと認識をしています。
Chinese leader Xi Jinping has arrived in Hanoi to meet Vietnam's ruling Communist Party Nguyen Phu Trong. This is after Hanoi advanced its diplomatic ties with Washington when U.S. President Joe Biden visited last September. Xi is scheduled to meet other Vietnamese leaders to discuss international and regional issues in China-Vietnam relations. Vietnam's bamboo diplomacy approach has allowed Hanoi to stay on good terms with both China and the United States. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that the visit would involve talks on bringing China-Vietnam relations to a higher position.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un smiles as a crowd of adoring kids hug and surround him. Some jumped up and down and simply waved at the Pyongyang leader. The trending video was taken during North Korea's 5th National Conference of Mothers. Kim was emotional at the event where he asked mothers to have more children to combat the country's falling birth rates.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has pledged to enhance Russia's naval capabilities following the inauguration of 2 new nuclear submarines.
И эти грозные, не имеющие равных в своем классе ракетоносцы начинают службу в составе нашего военно-морского флота. Мы последовательно оснащаем военно-морской флот самой современной техникой и вооружением. И подчеркну, увеличением именно серийного производства.
President Putin traveled to Severodvinsk to inspect the vessels named the Emperor Alexander III and Krasnoyarsk at the Sevmash shipbuilding yard where they were constructed over the past 6 years. These submarines are set to join Russia's Pacific Fleet. The Russian president, who recently announced his intention to seek a 5th presidential term in the 2024 election, has consistently emphasized the significance of Russia's new generation of weapons, particularly nuclear systems, as a deterrent. In addition to the 2 submarines inaugurated, Russia is in the process of building 8 more nuclear submarines, 3 Boreal-class and 5 Yasin-class, further underlining the nation's commitment to bolstering its naval capabilities.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spent Monday in Washington, where he made an impassioned plea for continued U.S. military support. He told an audience of U.S. officers at the National Defense University that military aid delays are a dream come true for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ralph Cornell reports.
President Volodymyr Zelensky had harsh words for Republicans in Congress who have turned against American funding for the Ukrainian war effort. He says Russian President Vladimir Putin must be defeated, adding more is at stake than just Ukraine.
The whole world is watching us, observing what destiny other free nation could face to live freely or to be subjugated.
Zelensky also met with the heads of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank as he seeks to shore up his embattled nation's economy. Today, he meets with President Joe Biden and congressional leaders from both parties. Ralph Cornell from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The European Commission plans to raise 15 billion euros for Ukraine by 2027. Sources say the revenues will come from frozen Russian sovereign assets. To implement the proposal, it must be unanimously approved by all 27 EU member states at a summit on December 14 to 15. Sources also say that the plan was delayed when several EU members and the European Central Bank raised legal and financial concerns about it.
Polish lawmakers have voted to reject the proposed conservative government. Instead, parliamentarians have chosen former EU chief Donald Tusk as the next prime minister. JC Umal reports.
Selecting Donald Tusk ends 8 years of right-wing populist rule. On Monday, the lower house of parliament rejected the conservative camp's proposed new cabinet. Tusk says, starting immediately, his government will be able to right all of the wrongs so that everyone can feel at home in Poland. The head of the right-wing Law and Justice Party accused Tusk of being a German agent. Even though the Law and Justice Party won the most seats in the October general election, it has been unable to find coalition partners to form a government. Tusk says he will restore Poland's credibility with the EU, and that should unblock billions of euros in EU aid that has been frozen because of the long-standing tensions between Brussels and the outgoing government. JC Umul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Iran has unveiled its newly developed missile-equipped drones, reinforcing its air defense capabilities. Dubbed as the Qatar Interceptor drone, it is capable of being operated in a range of up to 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles. Iran's state media said the drone has been equipped with a Majid thermal missile with a range of 8 kilometers. This has sparked concern among many nations, particularly the United States and Israel. The two nations previously accused Tehran of providing fleets of drones to its allies in the Middle East. These are notably the Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah and the Yemeni Houthi rebels.
The United Nations says a severe funding crisis means fewer people will receive humanitarian aid. In its global humanitarian outlook for 2024, the UN says it needs $46 billion to bring life-saving help to some 180 million people. Thomas I. Likeness has that story.
UN humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths says war, climate emergencies, and economic collapse fuel the demand for help. He says those problems are in competition with each other for scarce dollars.
There is no doubt about climate competing with conflict as the driver of need.
Floods, typhoons, heat waves, and drought are on the increase as the climate changes. But just how big a factor are these weather calamities?
Climate displaces more children now than conflict. It was never thus before, and climate will grow.
Worldwide, Griffiths estimates some 300 million people will be in need in 2024, but with a reduced budget, he says the UN can only help slightly more than half that number, about 180 million.
You can imagine what hard work it has been to reduce those numbers, to persuade agencies to come down, to be realistic, to be focused, to be tough-minded.
Griffiths says there are a number of hotspots that need assistance. The Middle East and Africa will get the largest total of any region.
The countries of the greatest need in 2024, I am quite sure, are going to be the Palestinian people, Sudan and Sudan westwards, Ukraine, it ain't over yet.
Sadly, he says, parts of Africa are being forgotten. Griffiths calls on the international community to step up. This year, the UN could only raise about 1/3 of its target of $56 billion, one of the worst funding shortfalls in years. He says global support is not keeping pace with the needs, and without that funding, Griffiths says people will pay with their lives. Thomas I. Likeness for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urges an agreement at COP28 to phase out fossil fuels. Rose Papa Angeles has the details.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres presses COP28 negotiators to show flexibility in the climate summit's final hours. Less than a day before the summit's scheduled close in Dubai, Guterres flies back and warns there are still large gaps holding up the consensus. Guterres calls on negotiators to have a single-minded focus on tackling the root cause of the climate crisis, which is fossil fuel production and consumption. Guterres has made climate a top priority. He calls on the summit to recognize the need to phase out all fossil fuels. This is a stance opposed by oil producers led by Saudi Arabia. In his call for flexibility, Guterres says there should also be attention to the concerns of fossil fuel producers. He adds not all countries would have the same immediate responsibility. Rose Papa Angeles from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Despite sanctions from the West, Iran's oil industry has produced 3.4 million barrels of oil daily. RT correspondent Yusuf Jalali reports.
Iran's oil sector is the hardest hit by Western sanctions, as it is the beating heart of the country's economy. But despite Washington's pledge to bring Iran's oil sales to zero, the country's crude output and exports have made a major rebound, with the production reaching 3.4 million barrels per day. That's roughly the same figure before the U.S. reinstated sanctions on Iran in 2018, seeking to choke off Iran's oil sales. Here at Tehran's Union of Oil, Gas and Petrochemical Exporters, shortly known as OPEC, experts say since the exit of Western oil firms from Iran in 2018, Iran has delegated its oil projects to local service providers and manufacturers, which are gradually pushing oil production up to the pre-sanctions level.
There is the capacity to increase our production to 3.8 million barrels per day. Prior to the nuclear deal and reinstatement of sanctions, we were producing 3.8 million barrels per day, but following sanctions, we had to shut down oil wells due to the loss of export markets. And now we can rebuild our output to 3.8 million barrels per day with the least expense and without the need to conduct new drillings or install new equipment. Currently, we produce 3.4 million barrels per day and roughly 700,000 barrels per day of liquid gas.
Iran's oil exports have also bounced back to almost 1.5 million barrels per day. Following Washington's reimposition of the anti-Iran sanctions, this figure dropped to almost 100,000 barrels per day. Currently, China buys the bulk of Iran's petroleum despite the oil embargo. And of course, that comes with some controversies about discounts Iran is given to Beijing. But Tehran has recently focused on diversifying its market by what the oil ministry has described as creating demand. As part of this initiative, Iran has been building extraterritorial oil refineries, starting from Venezuela's El Palito refinery, which has the capacity to produce 146,000 barrels per day. The complex is undergoing major repair and expansion work by Iranian engineers as part of a 100 million euro deal signed last year between Tehran and Caracas. The country is now building its second extraterritorial refinery in Syria. Other countries, such as Cuba, Nicaragua, and South Africa, have also requested Iran to construct refinery units in their territories. Experts at OPEC believe this scheme will shield Iran's oil exports from the impact of Western sanctions.
United States Senator Elizabeth Warren has announced a new bill to crack down on alleged misuse of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act aims to mitigate illicit finance risks that crypto poses by closing loopholes and bringing the digital asset ecosystem into greater compliance with the anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism frameworks that govern much of the financial system. Senator Warren said the lack of basic legal safeguards around crypto opens up Americans to countless risks. She added that crypto has become the payment method of choice for terrorist organizations and drug cartels in funding their illicit activities. The senator also said that digital currencies should be governed by the same transparency rules to protect Americans and help ensure crypto is not used to facilitate criminal activities.
Shares of Macy's have surged more than 17% after a report revealed a buyout deal of $5.6 billion. The report said the investor offered to pay $21 for each share of the retailer that they do not own. The deal would pay shareholders a 32% premium above the stock's closing price Friday. Macy's and other capital firms related to the buyout deal declined to comment.
Up next, thousands of dead fish mysteriously wash up on the beaches of Japan. Emmanuel Macron's flagship immigration bill gets voted out of Parliament. And Google releases their year-in search 2023. Please don't go away. We've got more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Isang malaki at matagumpay na summer event ang pinagdiwang natin ngayong taon. Kaya naman, ang Summer Blast na ito, nominado sa isang prestiyosong parangal. Congratulations! Summer Blast! Nominated as Best Entertainment, Asian Television Awards. Ang pagkilalang ito ay inspirasyon namin sa patuloy na pagbibigay ng masasaya at exciting events para sa lahat. You make us proud, Connect 25.
Opo ang inyong katuwang tungkol sa usaping ito.
Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is, pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
Check yun.
Check.
Check na check.
Double check.
Check na check tayo dyan.
A sperm whale, which had been filmed swimming among people at a Western Australian beach, has sadly died after getting stuck on a sandbar. Authorities became concerned when the whale was found swimming dangerously close to Port Beach in Fremantle on Saturday. Sperm whales, being the largest toothed whales and deep-sea feeders, are rarely seen near the shore. Wildlife officers and some beachgoers had been working for several days to guide the elderly whale, which was injured and severely sunburnt, back to deeper waters. Despite efforts to help the whale by spraying it with water to minimize blistering and sunburn, it was too weak to return to the sea and deteriorated further before succumbing. The whale's carcass will now be removed to minimize shark risks.
Thousands of tons of dead fish, including sardines and mackerel, washed ashore in Hakodate. The phenomenon created a silver blanket that covered almost a mile of the beach. Officials warned locals not to consume the collected dead fish. The exact cause behind the incident is not yet known. Experts say temperature changes in the seawater can kill the fish, but some reports speculated that the release of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant could be the reason for the dead fish.
A recent violent episode occurred in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, with enraged drug lords targeting corrupt police officers alleged to have stolen a drug shipment. Prosecutors report that 2 officers suspected of the theft have been killed, but the death toll includes at least 3 other officers. This suggests that the cartel, believed to be the owner of the stolen drugs, may have launched a broader retribution campaign. This incident adds to Tijuana's challenges as the city already has the highest homicide rate in Mexico. Tijuana has consistently experienced around 2,000 murders annually for several years.
Colombia's Navy says a major drug bust has netted authorities 388 tons of cocaine and other drugs. The seizure is the result of a multinational operation. David Oria has the details.
Dubbed the Orion Naval Campaign, the operation involved 42 countries. Authorities carried it out over a 6-week period. Colombian Naval Commander Francisco Cubides says they seized 195 tons of cocaine, 175 tons of marijuana, 14 tons of hashish, 2 tons of cocoa paste, as well as a small amount of methamphetamines and heroin. But police seized more than just drugs. Some 113 boats, 6 semi-submersibles, and 2 aircrafts have also been confiscated. Police also seized vehicles and cash. David Oria from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Firefighters had searched a 12-foot-tall pile of debris left by the collapse of a 7-story building in the Bronx, finding that no one had died or been severely injured. The fire department announced separately that 2 people had sustained minor injuries while evacuating the building. Fire Department Chief John Hodgins said at a news conference that the 46-unit building officials have not traced the cause of the partial collapse. Photographs and videos showed rooms at the corner of the building at 1915 Billingsley Terrace exposed, almost as if the walls had been ripped off.
More than 400 South African gold miners returned to the surface. Some of them collapsed due to lack of food. The miners were underground for 4 days amid tensions between unions and the mine owners. EJ Gonzalez tells us more.
The South African miners failed to emerge at the end of their night shift on Thursday at Springs east of Johannesburg. This in a near repeat of a 3-day protest in October. The miners all came out on Monday. Gold One says last week a small group of balaclava-wearing employees took fellow workers hostage. This prevented them from returning to the surface. The company and miners, however, later said a majority appear to have deliberately remained underground as part of a protest. One worker says conditions below ground had become unbearable. They stayed underground for 4 days with little food. This led miners to end their protest. In October, a dispute over union representation at the mine led to more than 500 workers being trapped underground for almost 3 days. EJ Gonzalez for Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The UK Health Security Agency warns that dengue fever mosquitoes could become a common sight in England by the 2040s. They say that dengue fever could be transmitted in London by 2060. Mosquitoes potentially spread dengue fever, Zika virus, and chikungunya. These diseases are normally associated with the tropics. But health experts believe warmer conditions have allowed the Asian tiger mosquitoes to spread across much of Europe in recent years. These mosquitoes travel with humans and through the transportation of goods. Aside from dengue fever, the UK Health Security Agency also fears more food and water-borne infectious diseases could spark more pandemics.
The French Parliament has rejected President Emmanuel Macron's immigration bill. Lawmakers from Marine Le Pen's far-right party as well as hard-left parties joined forces to throw the bill back on the drawing board. Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin said he offered to resign during a meeting with Macron. Darmanin pushed the bill before the lower house of the parliament before its rejection. But Macron opposed his resignation. Darmanin told reporters he was asked by Macron to seek other ways to put the bill forward. He also vowed to fight for Macron's immigration bill.
Ce projet de loi, il est très important pour la protection des Français. Donc je propose qu'on fasse une petite pause dans la politique politicienne, qu'on ait compris le sens profond de la mission qu'est la nôtre, la protection des Français. Et encore une fois, ces mesures sont très importantes et je me battrai jusqu'aux derniers instants pour pouvoir l'obtenir.
Certains des députés Beeper Mini, an app that brings iMessage to Android, was shut down by Apple. Stephanie Mayo has the data.
Beeper Mini allows Android phones to send texts on Apple's iMessage service with its signature blue bubble. Its developers apparently figured out how to associate a phone number with iMessage to connect with Apple's servers. But a few days after the Beeper Mini team announced this, Apple had taken steps to shut it down, saying that they are protecting the privacy and security of their iMessages. According to Apple's senior PR manager Nadine Haija in a statement, Apple had taken steps to protect users by blocking techniques that exploit what she said were fake credentials in order to gain access to iMessage. On Sunday, Beeper founder Eric Mijikovsky posted a statement on X stating that they are working to get the app up and running again. He added that they are feeling good about bypassing Apple's restrictions and stated that Beeper Mini is more secure and connects directly to Apple's services. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Google has unveiled its year-end search for 2023, highlighting the top global queries with the ongoing Israel-Hamas war emerging as the leading news trend for the year. Other notable searches included the Titanic-bound submersible incident in June, February's earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, and American football player Damar Hamlin, who experienced a near-death cardiac arrest on the field. Actor Jeremy Renner surviving a snowplow accident, joining the late Matthew Perry and Tina Turner, both of whom have passed away, were the top trending personalities. In the entertainment realm, Barbie led Google search's movie trends, followed by Oppenheimer and India's thriller Jawan. Google also marked its 25th birthday by releasing top search data of all time across various categories. More details, including country-specific lists and trends from previous years, can be found on Google's year-in search archive. Coming right up, a Russian whistleblower has gone missing. Barbie and Succession lead the charge for Golden Globe nominations. And K-pop stans wish the best of luck to the last two members of BTS before the AAA Awards. Catch the latest in sports and entertainment. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Desidido na si Sanem sa magiging laman ng nobela niya.
Kwento natin to, Chan. Kailangan ng permiso mo.
Pero mukhang nakapagdesisyon na rin si Yigit.
Hindi mo mahal si Sanem, hindi mo siya deserve. Nagawa mong sunugin yung notebook niya.
Hanggang dito na lang yata ang relationship nila Chan at Sanem.
Aalis ako. Bye.
Sadly, malayo ang fiction sa totoong buhay.
Pero totoo nga ba ang second chances? Daydreamer, Monday to Friday, 7:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25.
May kayamanan sa goodwill?
Gusto niyo bang mahukay ang katotohanan?
Huwag palampasin ang kapanapanabik na mangyayari sa barkadahang minahal nyo na.
Goodwill Season 3?
Tuwing Sunday yan ha, alas 4 ng hapon.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Let's get together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
United States expresses deep concern after allies of jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny said they have no news of him or his whereabouts recently. Jeffrey Sanidad tells us more.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the U.S. is deeply concerned by the reports that Alexei Navalny is now gone for allegedly a week and that neither his representatives or his family know where he is.
We do not have any information about his whereabouts. We are deeply concerned for Mr. Navalny's well-being after his lawyers have stated that they have not been able to contact him for almost a week now, and after he did not appear at his scheduled court appearance today. We have communicated to the Russian government that they are responsible for what happens to Mr. Navalny while he's in their custody, and they will be held accountable by the international community.
Kirby says Navalny should be released immediately and that he should never have been jailed in the first place. Kirby adds the U.S. is going to work with its embassy in Moscow to see how much more they can find out. Navalny's allies say they have been unable to locate him for 6 days. They suspect that he had likely been transferred from the prison where he was serving a 19-year sentence on extremism charges. A court this summer ordered to have him move to a harsher special regime prison colony. Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
2 puma cubs were born at the Tierra Alta Animal Sanctuary in Paraguay. Tierra Alta disclosed that the 2 cubs were 15 days old and would remain with the mother at the sanctuary. It added the cougars will be released into the wild once they are self-sufficient. The sanctuary has been running for 7 years to shelter confiscated or rescued animals. About 115 animals were residing at the facility. These include birds, deers, and rheas.
El padre vino de meses, ¿verdad? Vino con muchas heridas y es un animal manso, ¿verdad? A quien le podés tocar, podés jugar con él, porque de chiquito le tenemos como un gato.
Horseback riding sport has made its return as a competitive sport in England. From Europe, Giancarlo Matera reports.
Jousting, England's first national sport, is making a comeback as a competitive sport.
We aim at each other's heads. You don't get that in most other types of sport, using real weapons to deliberately hit at heads. So there's an extra element of risk that people, I think, appreciate and certainly find exciting.
At Carrinsbrook Castle on the Isle of Wight, a jousting tournament recreates the medieval tradition where knights in suits of shining armor charge at each other on horseback with wooden lances. Jousting is one of the oldest equestrian sports globally, dating back to the 10th century here in England. Originally a form of military training for knights, it was practiced between battles. In modern tournaments held at historic castles and stately homes, knights aim to score points rather than unseat their opponents. The revival of jousting after its decline by the early 17th century has sparked discussions about its potential inclusion as an Olympic sport. Giancarlo Matera, London, United Kingdom, reporting from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Perth Filipino dance group officially marks its presence in Perth, Western Australia. This at its grand launch this November. Marisol Bautista reports.
Advocating Filipino culture through dance, the Perth Filipino Dance Group shares with a diverse audience the beauty of Philippine folk dances. The aim of the now officially registered dance group goes beyond the spotlight. This all-women dance troupe aims to understand more and deepen their connection to Filipino culture through movement. During the dance group's launch, a fundraising event was also held benefiting select recipients at the Antipolo Elementary School in the Philippines and the Perth Homeless Support Group Incorporated here in Western Australia.
Hi there, my name is Sally Palmer. I'm former councillor of the City of Bayswater, on and off since 2007. I'm very pleased to be here tonight on a very, very good fundraising. And This is for the school, the Alma Polo School in Philippines, and also for a homeless group that are also in Bayswater.
I am Jenalyn Luis. I am the president of the Perth Filipino Dance Troupe Incorporated. This is our first event actually, our first dinner and dance event, and also our fundraising event.
The launch is only the first step to introduce Philippine traditional or folk dances not only to the younger Filipino-Australian generation, but also to other communities in the country. In Perth, Australia, Maricel Bautista for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected on point.
The Golden Globes unveiled its highly anticipated nominations list Monday morning, with Barbie topping the list. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
It's a big year for Barbenheimer. The nominations for the 2024 Golden Globes were announced Monday morning, with Greta Gerwig's box office hit Barbie leading in the film categories with 9 nominations, followed by Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer with 8. Other top contenders on the film side are Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon and Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things with 7 each. In the TV category, Succession leads with 9 nods, followed by The Bear and Only Murders in the Building with 5 nominations apiece, and The Crown with 4. HBO Max releases earned a total of 17 nods among the distributors, followed by Netflix with 15. The Golden Globes also introduced 2 new awards, Best Stand-Up Comedy and Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. With the Globes no longer being overseen by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, a new diverse group of 300 journalists from 76 countries is selecting this year's nominees and winners. The 81st Annual Golden Globe Awards is set to air live from the Beverly Hilton on January 7, 2024. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The 2023 edition of Art Basel in Miami Beach opened on Wednesday with VIP collectors such as Leonardo DiCaprio, Jeff Bezos, and more lining up to make purchases. Catherine Ertula has the scoop.
277 galleries gathered in the annual International Art Fair in Miami Beach to sell their most in-demand works before the year ends. Celebrity art aficionados such as Leonardo DiCaprio, Jeff Bezos, Tommy Hilfiger, Serena Williams, and more trekked to the art fair to make a purchase when it opened its doors on Wednesday. The Miami Beach Convention Center was abuzz with collectors, artists, art students, gallerists, and celebrity guests to revel at the artworks, with highlights that included an inflatable painted globe by Sungtek Lee, Thomas Scott's sculpture, a blue Murano glass bust titled Frauenkopf, to Pepon Osorio colossal heart suspended in air. This year's year brought in several big-ticket sales, including a $20 million Philip Guston painting sold at the House at Invert's booth, a Tracy Emin worth $1.5 million at Xavier Hufkins, and gallerist David Swerner sold 3 Robert Ryman paintings made between 1961 and 1964 for $2 million to $3 million apiece. Art Basel Miami ran from December 8 to 10. Catherine Ertula for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
BTS members Jimin and Jungkook started their mandatory military service Tuesday. This resulted in the hiatus of the K-pop mega group and missing this year's Asia Artist Awards in the Philippine arena. South Korea's state media reported that the final 2 members of the group started their 5-week basic training at an army boot camp. In South Korea, all able-bodied men are required to serve for at least 18 months in the military. The oldest member of the group, Jin, enlisted last year, with the remaining members following in 2023. Other BTS members, J-Hope and Suga, enlisted earlier this year. Meanwhile, RM and V enlisted on Monday.
And for your Tuesday motivation, here's our quote from Canadian writer Robin Sharma. The real value of setting and achieving goals lies not in the rewards you receive, but in the person you become as a result of reaching your goals.
That's why in everything you do, it's so important to bet on yourself and treat yourself as an investment.
Exactly. And it's not so much the getting to the top as it is the climb.
Yes. It's all about the climb.
All about the climb.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.